So you see, the complexities surrounding the president are very deep, because you can also look at Arthur Fraser from another lens, being part of the so-called Zuma faction, which is pro-Russian, by the way, and the fact that Ramaphosa is actually in the middle, not pro-Russian or pro-American, or is strategically ambiguous in his approach to who to support in this in this global war. The Zondo Commission report is out, and some people in this country are saying that, including people like Thuli Madonsela, I heard her say that it is the people that are implicated in the Zondo Commission, and she also points out that Arthur Fraser is one of those people that are implicated, but are paid to a very minimum. But their camp believe that the attack on Ramaphosa is from those people, is a fight against the Zondo Commission report. Okay, there's a truism in there. So, but also on a global stage, the Americans are not happy that South Africa is not coming hard against Russia in condemning Russia. And if they condemn Russia, therefore South Africa will isolate Russia. Therefore South Africa will be out of BRICS. Therefore South Africa should be not have anything to do with Russia. But if South Africa is, you see, the position of South Africa is saying that we don't blame Russia, we don't blame Ukraine, we're just saying let's just give dialogue a chance. In Washington, it is viewed as pro-Russian. Do you understand? That's how the Russians view it, the Washington people view it, because they view it as that way. And in Moscow as well, it is viewed as not being anti-Russian, but it leaves room for South Africa to carry on its relationship with Moscow. You see, South Africa has got the relationship with Russia, and that relationship is based on what Moscow has to offer to South Africa. It has got nothing to do with Washington. But you know, Washington is very nosy. It wants to control everyone else. And therefore, in their fight against Vladimir Putin and Russia, they want to isolate him. And South Africa is a very strategic country. I've said it in many of my videos here, that it cannot be understated the extent to which whoever is in control of South Africa or influences South Africa, he has got the scales tilted towards them in this global battle between the West and Moscow. And so therefore Ramaphosa is this pivotal position that both Moscow and Washington would like to covet. And this stand that Ramaphosa has took to the Washington people, it is pro-Russian, even though he didn't say it's pro-Russian, because they view it from the point of be anti-Russian and isolate Russia. But Ramaphosa is not anti-Russian. He is in the middle. At the same time, he is carrying on with BRICS. And I like what Vladimir Putin did today. He threw in something sweet. He said that he's gonna give first preference to BRIC countries to give oil. Oil is a rare commodity in the world. South Africa does not have oil. So South Africa needs countries with oil. Russia. America has got oil. But America is not interested in giving its oil to anybody else, except they're interested in self-preservation. Energy independence is a big theme in USA, and therefore there will be no help that South Africa will get from Americans when there's a global oil shortage or supply chain problems as far as oil and food like wheat is concerned. It will be Russia that will open up gates. So for us not to go hungry in South Africa, for us to have fuel, we do need Russia. It's a matter of survival. But Washington doesn't view it that way. Washington views us as subhumans, slaves to Washington, who must just jump and ask how high must we jump when the Washington government asks. And therefore, Ramaphosa just said, no, I'm not going to jump. I'm going to think about my people, and I'm going to say, give negotiations a chance between Russia and Ukraine. So Ramaphosa did not alienate Russia. And as a result, Russia still find friendship not only with China, but also with South Africa. Because we are saying in this country that, okay, it's a war. That has got nothing to do with black people. Really, at the crux of it, the Ukraine crisis is a war of white people. To put it much more crudely, it's a war between white Russians and white Ukrainians. It's got nothing to do with black people. So Washington mustn't pressure us in their wars. If they have got an issue with Putin, it's their issue, not us as Africans. We don't have an issue with Putin. We also don't have an issue with Washington. That is why Ramaphosa will not be on either side. Because Ramaphosa does not have an issue with everybody. But because he took that stance in politics, it doesn't matter whether you are right or wrong. What matters is that whoever has got the power does what they do with their power, depending on whether they are satisfied or not. And since Washington is not satisfied, so Ramaphosa has got an enemy there, to understand. And coming back home, some of the faction, which is the Zuma faction, which was more pro-Russian, but then they are fighting a different battle of the Zondo Commission. It doesn't matter even if Ramaphosa was pro-Russian. That faction will find itself at the receiving end if the Zondo Commission findings can find a life outside the commission, maybe in the NPA, stuff like that. So they would have reasons really to actually be anti-Ramaphosa as well. But also bear in mind that there is also that American influence that is dissatisfied with the fact that now South Africa and Moscow relations are getting closer. This comes at the backdrop of South Africa having some meetings with the French. I am sure in those meetings the French are going to pursue a policy in which Pretoria distances itself from Moscow, but I don't think they're going to survive. Because I'm sure the guys in Pretoria are super smart to know that wherever the French go, there is misery that is following behind. But wherever there is Chinese and the Russians, it's not a given that there will be misery. We actually might be in a good position to survive as a country with Russia and Moscow, with Pretoria and Moscow relations being intact. As far as France, who cares? Everybody who's got a relationship with France is destroyed. In the whole of Africa, there's no country in Africa where the French are and everything is correct, everything is nice. No, the French don't operate like that. The French do not view black people as people. They view us as subhumans, things to use. Just check what you have in your land, take, destroy, buy the black politicians, make them, turn them against their own people, turn a blind eye, get to the black people, get them to fight each other. That's history. Okay, that is history between Africa and France. Look at the history of Africa and Russia, Africa and China. Yes, there is problems with China, but it doesn't mean that every time there is China, something bad happens. Sometimes bad things happen, sometimes good things happen. Understand? With Russia, they helped us win a lot of wars. Okay. And if we look at the negatives from Russia in Africa, there are a few. The positives are a lot. But look at China, France, there's no positive, not even one. It's only negatives. So you do see that it's tough to be a president in a country like South Africa, but you see, I believe that what God wants to give birth in South Africa is true independence. To be independent from Russia, independent from America in your decision making. And whatever strategies that they use, whether they use Arthur Fraser, whatever revelations they use against you, you begin to have the answer and the attitude to stay strong and resilient to build a kingdom that is self-sufficient, that stands on its own and is able to pursue relations. Even if you are pursuing relations with France, you are not afraid of France just because France has got a bad record in in Mozambique. France and the Belgians got a bad record in DRC. They've got a bad record in Central Africa. They've got a bad record in Western Africa. There's no country that French has got a good record in. But if South Africa is going to have relationships with France, the France must know that South Africa is a kingdom or a powerhouse that is self-aware of its power. Because one thing about power is you can have power and not be aware of it. And you can be short-changed if you do not know, if you're not aware of your power. But I hope that the contingent from Pretoria is aware of the power that they have and that they should not be woodwinked by the French who are here and be able to come out strong. So in all of these things, South Africa must come out as a superpower, as a global player. Maybe superpower is not the right word. That superpower is America, but South Africa must come out of this thing as a powerhouse in global politics, an individual power that is not coerced easily by other powers. That is what should come out of it all. So let them attack whichever way they attack, however convoluted and complicated the attacks may be. But what you want to do as South Africa is to stay to your core, not to the American core, not to the pro-Russian core, but to the pro-South African core, which is built upon the ethos and the ethos of South Africa itself. That we decide what we want to say, we say what we say what we think. Do whatever it is that you're going to do with it, but we're not going to back off. And we will engage the French people, even though we know what they're doing in Africa. We will engage with them. And whether they think that we are subhuman is their business. But here in this country, they will not separate us. They will not succeed. Do you get what I'm talking about? Therefore, this is the attitude that the contingent from Pretoria should have when they're meeting the French. It is even when they are meeting the BRICS partners, because the BRICS bloc is a very important bloc in geopolitics, because it will counter the superpower of America. Because, talking about the banking sector, we need to have a counter apparatus, the financial system that is not based on the Switzerland headquartered SWIFT. That SWIFT system that is controlled by Americans. It means if they disagree with you over a small thing, even a dam, even a dam or whatever, they can just take you off SWIFT. That is too much power on one person or one country. So, to me, BRICS is important not to destroy America, no, but to keep America in good check. Because America is the police of the world, but then who is policing the police? Because if you are going to say, American exceptionalism, we are better than all of you, we'll tell you what to do, but who tells you what to do? Who keeps you in check when you are wrong? Don't tell me that you are right all the time, because that will be wrong. So, you don't own us, and we don't owe you allegiance. Okay, therefore, we have got the right to self-determination as a people of the world. Okay, America is a superpower. That came when? After World War II, when President Nixon took the US dollar off the gold standard and essentially made every saving around the world worthless, and America rich by declaration and by the fact that the other countries had failed. I mean, other countries that had been war torn after World War II, and the United States had gotten richer from uh, the business that they had in World War II, and therefore they become an industrial, military industrial complex. So this is just a recent superpower. It's just a small boy superpower. It just started yesterday, and I mean, really, we are not going to be controlled by Washington. It's a no-brainer to me. You know, Africa is extremely rich and powerful, and South Africa is very powerful in the region of Africa. And I do feel that the South Africans have not come to maturity as to understanding their power in the African bloc, and therefore their power in the whole world. South Africa is positioned to become a global superpower. But I do not think that the cadres of the ANC, the caliber of people within the ANC right now, have got that mentally, that brain power, and that I don't think they've got that approach to politics. I think their approach to politics is very personalized. It's about me. How much money will I make? How much bribe will you give me so that we can build my house? Put money in my bank account so that I can give this tender to you. That is, you're playing with small things when this political power in this country could be a world changer, a global leader. You know. But I'm afraid that eventually, I'm actually not afraid, I'm just thinking that eventually Nigeria will eventually take that place, that vacuum that South Africa is failing to fill. Eventually, I have prophesied before in this channel that God said that Nigeria is going to be a superpower. I mean, not superpower, superpower is not the right word. It's going to be one of the most powerful countries in the world. And I believe that originally it was supposed to be South Africa, but South Africa is slacking in so many ways, and the cadres are not understanding who they are. They are still colonized, they're still living in apartheid era. They don't understand what they inherited is bigger than them. It's bigger than these foolish tenders that we're busy with. You know, you've got power, like real power, that is much more meaningful than the silly tenders. And I think that over time, when Nigeria gets its acts together, according to the prophecy of God that He gave to me, Nigeria will eventually become the superpower of not only Africa, but of the world. Because here in Africa, we actually need to have an African nation that will be a conduit to African freedom. As we had Julius Nyerere and the Idi Amins of the long time ago, those those African leaders that drove African leadership. I mean, African liberation. You know, presidents of Kenya, Uganda. So those were the drivers. Those people that got liberation a long time ago. Now we do have so-called liberation. That's how they frame it. But of course, in the Francophone countries, it's not. It's just a mirage. So we need African countries, African leaders who will take a move towards the liberation of all Africa against European agents, France. Who in Africa, can I ask you a question? Which country in Africa right now is standing up against the oppression of France in Africa? Which African country is doing that now? The only people that I see being vocal and making a move right now is Ghana. And the other lady, I think she's Ghanaian, if not Nigerian. I think she was a minister. I forgot her name. There's a lady who's very vocal against what France is doing. I think she's Ghanaian or Nigerian, one of the two. I forgot her name. The other guy was very serious about this thing is the president of Ghana, Nana. What's his name? Nana something. The president of Ghana. He is a guy that I see. His heart is in the right place. He's vocal about it. He's making moves. In Ghana, they are going to be producing their own cocoa, their own chocolate from the cocoa that they make in their country, instead of always exporting it for cents on the dollar to Switzerland so that we can have Swiss chocolate. Yet Switzerland is buying that cocoa from Ghana for very cheap. So Ghana is going to go through value addition and begin to industrialize their nation. That is a good approach, and kudos to Ghana. And they've got the Ghanaian cedi. They don't have the French controlled currency. It is their own currency, and because of that, you will see that Ghana is really going to become a successful country, an influential country in Africa. I hope that the president who will come after Nana is going to be on the same vein. You see, Nigeria, Buhari is not he's not taking that move towards that greatness of Nigeria. But in Nigeria, you do have the Nigerians themselves. They are the powerhouse of Nigeria, not the president, but the Nigerians themselves. You see a guy like the president of the African Development Bank. He is Nigerian, and he refused to become a president of Nigeria. He rather stay there as a president of African Development Bank. And I think that he has got a mind that is pro-African, and I think that he is very smart and is going to be very influential in driving African liberation and growth. And yeah, and as I said, that he is Ghanaian. And another lady, things I'm very bad with names. I always forget people's names. The Nigerian former finance minister, I forgot her name as well. I think she's now heading the international. Shit, I forgot. Heading some organization, some financial organization. It's not IMF, the other one. It's not IMF, it's not World Bank. It's the other one. The people with their minds that are pro-Africa and they understand what the problems are. Those are the problems that South Africa must be looking into. But the South Africans, I think the individuals in South Africa, their mind is too much influenced by what happens in a class. The mindset of the location of foreigners must go. That localized mindset makes them not recognize that they actually are sitting on a behemoth. The power that is in Pretoria is extreme. It's a global power. But because they're always in Soweto, in the locations where black people, they're influenced by the black people's mindset. Therefore, they think they are grasshoppers instead of recognizing that they are actually giants. So South Africa is a giant that doesn't know that it is a giant. And then we have got Ghana and Nigeria that are giants that are rising, which have got citizens that really recognize that they are giants, but then they don't have the enough capacity or infrastructure to back it up, to back their claim, but they're getting there. And then we have got like countries like Ivory Coast, which really are helping France to destroy everybody else. But anyway, we will forgive them because they are our brothers. In the future, there will be a real liberation. In the future, we will get rid of the franc the French currency that they call the franc, and really, so we are looking for that leadership in Africa. There is that vacuum of power, of which I'm predicting that eventually Nigeria will take it, because South Africa is not mature enough to recognize it, or is too preoccupied with township politics and township mentality, smallness, such that they have not come to maturity to understand who they are. Because the cadres in the ANC do not have a clue of what they inherited. It is evidenced by the facts that we see, the evidence that comes out in the Zondo Commission. You can see that these people are still yoked by smallness. The kind of corrupt activities that they're involved in, they are just petty, extremely petty, if you were to compare it with the kind of power that they actually hold. I mean, ANC leading South Africa, which can lead the whole Africa and the whole globe. And all that Guatemala can do out of it is have some guy upgrade his house. Mandashe must be global changer, must be thwarting that globe. The moment he sets foot in China, they must be shaking there. That here comes a powerful guy from South Africa. But no, they know he's cheap. They can just give him a cheap Chinese car and he will do anything that the Chinese want, not recognizing that he is the one who's more powerful than the Chinese. So he will think, because the mind is still township. Okay, another guy that we need to mention who's powerful in this country is Thabo Mbeki. Actually, South Africa must follow in the footsteps of Thabo Mbeki, because the only person who has recognized the power of South Africa is Thabo Mbeki, and his approach to African Renaissance and his influence across the African nation, African continent is very is amazing. We need more people like him, you see. Another person who was pro-African is Julius Malema. But as I say, that the township politics does not understand the influence of South Africa in Africa. The township politics in South Africa thinks local, but I don't blame them, because the former apartheid government destroyed South African black majority so much that they feel so disenfranchised that even now they are so much focused on localizing everything, instead of realizing that actually South Africa is a very powerful center of excellence in Africa across many disciplines, such that whoever leads here in Johannesburg can become the best in Africa. But because of short-sightedness that has been caused by apartheid and all that stuff, it makes ordinary South Africans to be against anything that is African. But I know that it is by design. The enemies of black South Africans want them to be locked in that mindset. It is their design. It is their it is the design of the enemy of black people. Because if the blacks were free in South Africa, they were free to think, and they were educated, they will recognize that they can take over Africa. They can recognize that the Africans who come to South Africa, they come for cheap labor, for jobs that don't pay much, and them as South Africans will be the leaders of industry, not only in South Africa, but invest into Africa and begin to colonize the rest of Africa. Okay, colonization, by the way, is not a bad thing. It's what you do once you colonize the people. To colonize the people is just to lead people, is to come to a country and lead them. Okay, you can lead them by treating them as inhumans, or you can lead them as treating them as other fellow human beings. It's up to you how you treat them. So South Africa is in a position of actually expanding its influence deep into Africa. So I will not use the word colonization, because it's got very negative connotations because of the historic background we have. So South Africa has got that capability, the infrastructure, and everything except the mind to do it. So South Africans like Thabo Mbeki and Julius Malema, who, when they express that Africanness, it fails to receive the backup from business and community and politics to make South Africa the sphere of influence in Africa, and actually South Africa to penetrate into Africa, South Africa to be in Mozambique, okay, South Africa to be in DRC, South Africa to change situation in Zimbabwe. You understand? To influence ZANU-PF to do right. And in that way, South Africa begins to benefit and they will become the leaders of Africa. But because of the township mentality, I understand the township mentality when it is expressed by the township people. But I don't understand it even when the leaders themselves actually express the same township mentality, like Bekele and the Home Affairs Minister and the whole ANC grouping, thinking in that smallness. It really makes them miss the bus that is going big into Africa. And when people like Julius Malema speak about Africa, they castigate him maybe because he's EFF and Julius Malema is very loud. And when Thabo Mbeki speaks, okay, Thabo Mbeki is ANC, they decide to take this position of silence, of ignorance, like, okay, let him talk about his African renaissance. Let's just keep quiet. We've got nothing to do with it. But we don't realize that Thabo Mbeki is actually opening doors of great influence and great wealth in Africa. But the South Africans do not recognize that because they are actually not educated enough to recognize it. Even the leaders themselves in ANC do not have adequate education and the mindset to recognize their opportunity to be influential in Africa and actually build wealth even for South Africa in Africa. Instead, they are listening and listen to the propaganda from the enemies of the people of South Africa who make them to be anti-Africans, because the enemy of black South Africans knows that once it makes them anti-Africans, they are actually blocking the door of Africa itself, so that it will be France who will enter Africa. And when France goes into Africa, as I told you, there's always misery that comes with it. So that it will be China, it will be USA, it will be Europe that will go into Africa and become wealthy in Africa and not South Africa, because South Africans are still foolish enough not to understand the nature of the game, the level in which the game is being played. You are still thinking about query, still thinking about jobs to South Africans. That is just petty. There is a bigger pie out there that the French are coming to get. And having a meeting with the South Africans, and I can actually foresee the French coming out of that meeting victorious, using South Africa as a conduit of France entering deeply into Africa and the French becoming richer in Africa and the South Africans foolishly losing. Only the people that are going to get few politicians who will have bumper stickers on their cars or have their doors and the windows upgraded by some French company, and they call that progress. Thank you for watching.